Hey there, I'm Ivana and you're listening to Mind Matters. Welcome to Season 4, The Brain on Desire. This season, I am digging into the cognitive forces fueling our cravings, from the way we love to the luxuries we chase. In each episode, I'll share science-backed insights and real-life stories to help you understand your deepest drives. Ready to find out why we want what we want? Hello, and welcome back to Mind Matters, where I explore the depths of human psychology through the lens of our most compelling desires. I'm Ivana, and you're joining me for episode 4 of season 4, where I've been unpacking the many facets of desire, what drives us, inspires us, and sometimes misleads us. Today, I'm asking a provocative question: is authenticity overrated? We hear the word everywhere. Job descriptions want authentic leadership. Social media is loaded with hashtag NoFilter, and brands tout transparency as if it's a new discovery. But are these displays of honesty always genuine, or could they be just another performance aimed at winning our hearts, wallets, and yes, our desire for something real? Let me paint a few scenarios that might sound familiar. Hashtag NoFilter culture on Instagram. You pick up your phone, open your favorite app, and there it is. Someone posting a raw, unedited morning selfie. Except the lighting is flawless, the angle suspiciously flattering, and you're pretty sure it took at least 20 tries to get that perfect shot. Even when people claim to be keeping it real, there's a nagging feeling that something's being staged. You are already aware of the politicians portraying the common folk. Election season rolls around and suddenly every candidate is out flipping burgers at local diners, wearing rolled up sleeves and talking about their humble beginnings. It looks spontaneous, but we all suspect there's a team behind the scenes meticulously crafting every handshake and photo op. Is that authentic or just part of the job description? How about those influencers' day in my life reels? You click on a new post from your favorite online personality titled My Real Morning Routine, and it opens with them sipping artisanal coffee in a perfect white kitchen. The camera angles are cinematic, the montage is set to catchy music, and there's more than a whiff of product placement. Sure, they're showing us behind the scenes, but everything feels meticulously curated. And of course, the brands got on that wagon of selling authenticity. Next time you're in the supermarket, look at all the labels bragging organic, handcrafted, or no additives. While many companies do walk the talk, others may simply be capitalizing on our collective craving for something genuine and unprocessed. Once again, it's packaging and salesmanship, performance in the name of being real. In each of these examples, we see a common thread, a claim of being just like you, of being completely transparent, of offering that unpolished truth we claim to desire. Yet, behind these claims, there's almost always a calculated effort to appear real. And therein lies the tension. Maybe everything we do has an element of performance. Even in our private lives, we tweak our behaviors based on who we're talking to, how we want to be perceived, and what we hope to gain. Acceptance, love, admiration, or simply a sense of belonging. So the question stands, is authenticity always genuine? Or is it another tool we deploy to meet our deeper desires for approval, status, or connection? In this episode, I'll be looking at the psychological and scientific roots of our craving for authenticity. I will talk about why being real feels so important, how evolution might have encouraged both realness and fakery, and how modern media and technology have turned authenticity into a prized commodity, perhaps even a brand strategy. Before I get into the specifics, take a moment to reflect on your own life. Have you ever tried to be yourself, but secretly worried that even that was a kind of performance? You're not alone. It's a universal human experience tied to our innate desires to fit in, connect, and make an impact in the world. For thousands of years, humans have relied on tight-knit groups for protection, resource sharing, and social belonging. In small ancestral communities, trust was non-negotiable. If you couldn't rely on your neighbor or clanmate, the entire group risked starvation, predation, or social collapse. Under those conditions, genuine signaling of intentions, an early form of authenticity, became crucial for forging alliances. But it also paid to be able to detect authenticity in others. The more adept you were at spotting a liar or a braggart, the better your chances of survival. Fast forward to modern times, and we're still living under the shadow of those ancient social imperatives. We may no longer roam savannas in small kin groups, but our neural pathways have preserved a keen interest in who's for real and who's putting on a show. When someone presents themselves as genuine, vulnerabilities, owning mistakes, or simply acting consistently with their stated values, it resonates with our deep-seated need for reliable social bonds. At the core of our desire for realness lies the brain's reward system, specifically areas like the ventral striatum, including the nucleus accumbens, which helps regulate feelings of pleasure, motivation, and trust. When we sense that a person's words match their body language, when they seem congruent, our brains may release neurotransmitters such as dopamine, which fosters a sense of reward and encourages us to continue the interaction with that person. This system evolved to guide us toward experiences beneficial for survival. Delicious foods, supportive relationships, cooperative allies, so it makes sense that we light up when we detect realness. Authentic encounters often lead to deeper bonds, which, in ancestral contexts, could mean greater protection, more resources, and shared labor. Even in the modern world, forming close social ties offers real benefits, from mental well-being to career opportunities. On the flip side, our brain also has threat detection mechanisms designed to pick up on insincerity. For instance, the insula can tune into internal signals, like a gut feeling, that something is off, while the amygdala helps flag potential threats. When we perceive a mismatch between a person's friendly words and their tense tone of voice or shifting gaze, these neural regions may heighten our wariness. Detecting incongruity or insincerity is an adaptive skill. It helps us avoid betrayals that could harm us in both social and survival terms. Now, another layer of our craving for realness is emotional resonance, the intuitive sense of feeling felt by another person. When someone expresses genuine emotion, whether joy, sadness, or vulnerability, our empathy circuits can activate, leading us to share in their emotional state on a neurological level. This shared experience typically deepens connection and fosters trust. We come away thinking, they really let me see them. I feel closer now. At the same time, inauthentic displays, like a forced smile or insincere apology, may leave us feeling strangely disconnected, even if we can't pinpoint why. That subtle sense of something's missing here may stem from neural processes in the mirror neuron system, which detects mismatches between expected and observed emotional expressions. Small note here, there is some dispute in the scientific community about mirror neurons, but I will not get into that now. So, if the facial expression or tone doesn't match the content of what's being said, our brains pick up on the discrepancy and prompt a sense of distrust. Ultimately, the emotional resonance that arises from true expressions of self isn't just a nicety. It's a signal to our brains that we're in the presence of safe, cooperative partners. This is particularly important because we have an intrinsic, powerful desire for belonging. Feeling accepted and understood isn't just icing on the cake. Historically, it was vital for survival in group settings. In modern times, that same drive may manifest in our thirst for authenticity in our modern mediums, both in ourselves and in the people we allow into our circles. And what about this paradox of perfection versus congruence? Here's where it gets interesting. We also love polished performances. Think of how we gravitate toward expertly crafted social media feeds or impeccably produced concerts. Our brains are drawn to competence, beauty, and excellence, qualities that might signal strong genes or valuable resources in an evolutionary context. However, when those polished displays present themselves as real and effortless, our brains receive conflicting signals. On one hand, we admire them. On the other, we suspect there's more going on behind the scenes. Many of us are willing to overlook a little curating or packaging as long as it doesn't stray too far from perceived honesty. But if something appears close to genuine but is off in a subtle way, we become uneasy. Our brains prefer a coherent story, one that aligns words, emotions, and context. That coherence triggers trust, while obvious incongruence triggers alarm. So why, at our core, do we care so much about any of this? Because deep down, we want to connect and be accepted. Humans are inherently social creatures, relying on alliances for mental and emotional support. Authenticity signals that the person we're engaging with is giving us a genuine glimpse into who they are. That, in turn, invites reciprocity. We are more likely to share our own truths, forging an emotional bond that's mutually rewarding. Yet, this same desire can lead to a social paradox. We crave the real deal. We also fear that our genuine selves might be judged or rejected. Sometimes, then, we opt to present an edited version of ourselves, a performance we think will be better received. When others do the same, we may feel a pang of disappointment or cynicism, but we also understand why they're doing it. We're all wired to seek approval, belonging, and admiration. In essence, the tension between wanting unvarnished authenticity and sometimes rewarding skillful performances underlines the complexity of the human experience. Our brains have multiple layers of detection and reward. We're attuned to congruence, yet dazzled by competence, suspicious of incongruity, yet capable of orchestrating it ourselves. Understanding this dynamic that is present in all of us can help us be more intentional about who we trust, how we share ourselves, and the ways we interpret realness in others. And here we are today, living in an era where being real is not just valued, it's demanded. Social media users expect transparency, rawness, behind-the-scenes glimpses, and flaws on display. We praise creators who show their messy rooms, unfiltered skin, and anxiety spirals. But here's the paradox. The more authentic someone appears online, the more envy they may actually trigger in us. That's not a theory. That's what researchers have found. A 2018 study by Chae examined how female social media users emotionally respond to influencers. What she found was striking. Participants reported feeling more envy and self-comparison when scrolling through posts by so-called authentic influencers, those who present themselves as relatable, casual, spontaneous, and vulnerable, than when viewing content from polished, untouchable celebrities. At first glance, that seems backwards. Shouldn't we feel less threatened by people who seem like us? Shouldn't Beyoncé's curated perfection be more intimidating than a lifestyle influencer showing their 7 a.m. face mask routine? But here's the psychological mechanism. When someone looks too perfect, we mentally place them in a different category. Not like me. Our comparison reflex gets turned off. But when someone looks almost like us, same age, similar habits, same IKEA rug, we begin to subconsciously compare. And that's where the emotional damage kicks in. The closer they feel, the more dangerous they become to our self-worth. So, what is the psychology behind relatable envy? We know from decades of social comparison theory by Festinger that we evaluate ourselves by looking at people we perceive as similar. These lateral comparisons are powerful because they suggest, if they can do it, why can't I? So, when someone who seems just like us is living in minimalist perfection, sipping mushroom coffee on a marble counter, we don't just admire them. we begin to feel we're failing by not achieving the same lifestyle. Chae's research revealed that authenticity doesn't vaccinate us against envy, it may amplify it, precisely because it creates the illusion that this life is attainable, that the beauty and success are natural, effortless, and deserved, even if it's all been carefully staged. Which brings us to a crucial insight. Authenticity on social media is often not authenticity at all. It's a performance. To understand that, we need to look at a 2015 study by Duffy and Hund. They coined the term calibrated amateurism to describe how influencers intentionally craft content to look raw or unpolished, while in reality it's anything but. Take fashion bloggers or lifestyle creators. Their photos are meant to appear spontaneous. Oh, I just threw this outfit on. But behind the scenes are mood boards, lighting setups, affiliate links, and brand strategy meetings. In other words, the content looks casual to build trust, but it's highly strategic. This performance of authenticity, messy buns, imperfect makeup, crying selfies, is not a rebellion against perfectionism. It's a new form of perfectionism, one that just wears a different costume. The danger here is that the viewer doesn't know where the line is. Are we seeing a real person in their vulnerability, or a calculated move to appear vulnerable because that drives engagement? And perhaps more importantly, do they even know anymore? Let's zoom in on what happens inside the brain when we see content that we perceive as real. A 2014 study by Reinecke and Trepte looked at how authentic self-presentation on social media impacts well-being. Their findings were layered. On one hand, people who felt they were able to present themselves authentically online reported higher subjective well-being. Being honest about who they are led to better mood, higher self-esteem, and greater life satisfaction. But there was a catch. When the effort to appear authentic became performative, when people curated posts to appear real rather than actually being real, it created cognitive dissonance. That tension between actual self and performed self leads to stress, anxiety, and burnout. You're pretending to be yourself. But that takes work. As I explained before, on the neurological level, appearing authentic activates reward circuits, primarily dopaminergic pathways. This is especially true when the performance is rewarded by likes, shares, or comments saying things like, "Thank you for being so raw," or "I needed this today." These hits of validation can reinforce the behavior, even if it's not aligned with the person's actual inner experience. So authenticity becomes a kind of drug. You keep performing vulnerability because it pays off, not just socially, but chemically. Now I'll add another layer, the algorithm. A 2020 study by Sarah Bishop explored how creators on YouTube, and increasingly on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, learn to game the algorithm by appearing authentic. In a content-saturated landscape, what cuts through is not glossy perfection anymore, but the illusion of intimacy. Eye contact, raw storytelling, self-deprecation. Creators know this. They study what works. They optimize their content for retention, relatability, and emotion, but without breaking the illusion that this was all unintentional. The camera was just rolling. I didn't even plan this video. This isn't sponsored. Except it often is. The algorithms reward vulnerability with views, and views lead to monetization. That system rewards performance, masquerading as authenticity, not because it's real, but because it looks real. So what does this mean for us? It means we are in a strange cultural moment. We crave authenticity more than ever, but we live in an attention economy where authenticity is gamified, commodified, and often distorted. And paradoxically, the people who appear the most genuine may be the most emotionally triggering because they seem like they're doing life better than we are, while still being just like us. It's not that authenticity is bad, but in a digital context, it may not mean what we think it means. It can be weaponized, monetized, algorithmically selected, and that should make us pause. So, the question is, what do we do about it? The answer isn't to leave social media entirely or to become hypercritical of anyone who shares honestly online. Instead, we can turn to neuroscience, psychology, and behavioral tools to help us coexist with curated realness without it hijacking our self-worth. Here are 5 science-based strategies, each designed to help you maintain mental clarity, emotional resilience, and a grounded sense of self, even in a world where everyone seems effortlessly authentic. 1. Practice strategic social comparison. Turn emotional triggers into data points. Social comparison is wired into our brains. It's part of how we orient ourselves in the world, but it only becomes toxic when it's passive and unconscious. The goal isn't to stop comparing, it's to compare with awareness. Researchers like Sauls and Wheeler have shown that conscious upward comparison, or looking at people who seem ahead of us, can actually motivate us if we treat it as insight rather than indictment. Here's a tool. The next time you feel envy towards someone who seems authentically perfect, ask yourself 3 questions. What exactly am I admiring or envying? What invisible labor might be behind this moment? Is this something I value or something I've been told to want? This breaks the automatic loop and gives you back control. 2. Curate a digital contrast feed. Interrupt algorithmic echo chambers. Most platforms feed us more of what we react to, even if that reaction is envy or shame. So if you engage with aspirational authenticity, your feed will become saturated with it. To fight back, create a deliberate contrast in your digital environment. Follow accounts that have nothing to do with lifestyle aspiration. Here are some ideas. Nature documentaries, slow art projects, behind-the-scenes science accounts, or craft-based creators from totally different spheres. This gives your brain visual and emotional neutral zones. It stops the constant self-comparison treadmill and reactivates curiosity pathways instead of insecurity circuits. There's growing interest in digital ecology, the idea that the content you consume is as important to your mental health as the food you eat. Think of your feed as a diet and diversify it. 3. Use the truth check mirror. Separate how you feel from what is true. When we scroll, we internalize the idea that what we're seeing is representative, but the truth is, most online personas are statistical outliers, not norms. One cognitive trick is to create a habit of verbalizing what's performative. When you feel self-critical after seeing a post, pause and say something out loud like, "This is likely curated. This is a highlight reel, not her whole life." It sounds simple, but language activates metacognition, thinking about your thinking. Neuroscientific evidence shows that putting feelings into words reduces their emotional impact. This process, called affect labeling, actually dampens the amygdala response. It's like tapping the brakes on a runaway thought loop. 4. Engage in embodied reality, or remind your nervous system what's real. One of the most powerful ways to disrupt digital dysphoria is to ground yourself in your body in real time. Here's a protocol I will attribute to the fantastic Mr. Lieberman. After a scrolling session, step outside for 90 seconds of panoramic vision, looking at the horizon or wide spaces. Combine this with physiological sighs. 2 short inhales through the nose, 1 long exhale through the mouth. Do this 3 times. Touch something textured or cold, like a metal object, running water, or wood. This activates sensory neurons and interrupts dissociation. This trifecta, vision, breath, and touch, resets your autonomic nervous system, helping your brain distinguish between digital stimulation and real-world safety. You're teaching your system, I'm not in danger, I'm not behind, I'm just online. 5. Use a self-authorship ritual to reclaim narrative control. We consume hundreds of micro-narratives a day, others' success, healing journeys, vulnerability posts. Over time, that can erode your sense of your own path. To counter this, develop a daily or weekly self-authorship ritual. For example, at the end of the day, write one true thing about your life. Not for sharing, not to be seen, just to remind yourself who you are and what you value. Make it specific. I made soup tonight and it made me feel calm. Or I was patient even though I was tired. This is not a gratitude list. It's personal narrative reinforcement. A quiet act of sovereignty in a world of performative selves. Over time, this strengthens your internal sense of identity. You know who you are because you've documented it for yourself. We often assume that authenticity is always good, but what I've explored today is a more complex reality. When authenticity is performed, it can become more manipulative than obvious fakery. The solution isn't cynicism, it's clarity. You don't need to delete your apps or shame others, but you do need tools. Tools that let your nervous system, your cognition, and your self-concept remain intact, even in a world built to erode them. Because in the end, the most authentic thing you can do is know when something is pulling you away from yourself and choose to come back. As I close this episode, let's revisit our starting question. Is authenticity overrated? Well, that depends on what you mean by authentic. Real authenticity doesn't beg to be witnessed. It doesn't need applause. And it certainly doesn't require a filter. Real authenticity is quiet. Sometimes messy, often private. It's the voice inside you that still whispers when no one else is listening. So here's the truth. You don't owe anyone a performance of your life, not even the curated version of your vulnerability. Your only responsibility is to stay close to yourself, to question what you're consuming, to pause before you compare, to take back authorship of your story, even if no one sees it but you. Thank you for listening to Mind Matters. If this episode sparked a shift in how you see authenticity, consider sharing it with someone who might need that same clarity. And if you'd like tools or references from today's episode, check the show notes. I've got you covered. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and above all, stay close to what's real. I will link all the studies and references in the show's description. If you found this discussion insightful, please consider sharing it with friends, family, or colleagues. Let's keep the conversation going about how we can make this affluent corner of Europe a healthier, more equitable place for everyone. Until next time, remember, your mind matters, and taking care of it is the best investment you'll ever make.